Oscar Bevis for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. David Diamante for the first time. Thank you very much for giving me some time. No, it's a pleasure. Where's the cigar?
We've heard about you. We've heard about you, but
good
now
things
you
only,
finally get to, yes, good things, of course.
Where's the cigar?
I just smoked one right after breakfast. Yeah, right on the waterfront here, man. On
Not
the Albert Dock, man. It was great.
Not a bad place.
Yeah.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
You sort of gave a little speech about why Liverpool and the fans are so good, and so did Michael Buffer as well. Just talk to me first about some experiences you've had in Liverpool and why any fight here seems to be sort of magnified 10 times simply because of the fans and sort of the support that they give to their fighters.
Well, it's a very spirited city, and people know the Scousers are, they're a different breed, and of course you've got Everton and Liverpool, the two football clubs, and there's just a great history here, and there's also a tough history here, and I think that Liverpool, although they're English, they kind of feel a little bit separate, and they've had a tough go of it in the years with football and things like that, and so I think the people here are very proud, and even though you'll find like Everton and Liverpool fans, between themselves they'll kind of go at it. There's a lot of solidarity that they're all Scousers, and so there's a great unity in the city too, and they're the type of people that wear their heart on the sleeves. If they like you, they love you. If they don't like you, you're done. So I love that. I'm that kind of guy too. So good people.
Obviously, there's going to be massive support for Callum Smith. Talk to you about that fight. I mean, do you feel like people are underestimating John Ryder? Because it's sort of billed as a Callum Smith homecoming. But obviously, John Ryder's in there to try and do a job.
In boxing, everyone always wants to play the name game. You see this all the time. So it's guys with the name that everyone knows, oh, he's going to win, because they don't know the other guy. But that just means that they're casuals. They don't know who John Ryder is. Ask a guy like Andrei Sorokin who John Ryder is. He'll tell you. So John Ryder is a very tough guy. He's from Islington. He's the gorilla. He's going to come to fight. Trained by Tony Sims. This is not a game for him. He knows. He's been in a position before to fight for kind of smaller fringe titles, and he's always fell short, and that's been very hard for him, and he's fought very hard to get back to this stage he is now, 4 wins in a row. He is absolutely coming to fight, and it's going to be a good show. That being said, I think Callum Smith, there's levels to this game, and I think Callum Smith is going to be looking good on Saturday night.
A lot of the talk around Callum Smith is about potential fights in the future. I mean, I spoke to Callum. I know he's a top professional. He won't be overlooking John. But in terms of these fights in the future, does that put a lot of pressure on Callum to sort of not just win but look good if he wants these big fights?
Well, I think it does, but I think obviously, to use the American football analogy, you got to catch the ball before you run with it. He's got to win first. First thing first is get the W, right? And then he can worry about looking good. Take a look at what happened with Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. Everyone's talking about Wilder, everyone's talking about Fury. Took the eye off the ball. He got beat by Ruiz. We'll see if he can right the ship in a couple weeks. That's yet to be seen. But in this case, it's the same type of situation. So, yeah, you've got Canelo out there. You've got Andrade out there. You've got BJ Saunders. You've got David Benavidez. There's all these names at 168, names at 175. I don't know. Callum got a very big frame. Who knows if he can go to 160. But that whole vicinity, there's a lot of great fights for him. But, again, the man in front of him is John Ryder, and he's coming to do work. So the thing is, though, obviously Callum, trained by Joe Gallagher, coming from the fighting family. Again, his brother's on this card, too. Swifty's fighting on the card. He comes from a fighting family. It was his dream to win that title. He won the title in Saudi. I announced that fight. I saw the elation. He does not want to give up that title. He's only had one fight since the Groves fight in Saudi Arabia against Hassan Endam, and I think that Callum is really chomping at the bit. He wants those fights. He wants to get those fights. So, yeah, he does need to look good, but number one, he needs to win.
It seems like everyone you ask, if you say, who would you want to see Callum fight, they'd say Canelo because he's the biggest name in boxing. But for Callum, out of those fights, what do you think is the most winnable? Out of sort of the Canelo, the Billy Joes, Benavidez, sort of those fights, what would you say if Callum was to pick one at Anfield and one that you would favour him in?
Well, the fight that I think he'd win or the fight that I want to see?
Both. I mean, I imagine you'd want to see Canelo over on these shores.
I think it'd be great to have Canelo over here, of course, but to be honest, I want to see him fight Bandera Roja. I want to see him fight David Benavidez.
Yeah?
I think it'd be a great fight.
Okay, and talk to me about that fight if it was to happen.
Benavidez is young, he's strong. Callum is...
Would you say it's a 50-50?
I think it's a tough fight, let's put it that way.
Okay.
It's a really tough fight. It's a tough fight. It's a tough fight for Callum. Tough fight for Benavidez.
Yeah.
I think it is a 50-50. It's a very tough fight. That's a great fight.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great fight. Yeah, there's no dispute.
I don't know if it'll get made, but it's a great fight.
Yeah. I mean, one that could more likely perhaps get made is Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, both British, both working with Eddie in Matchroom. I mean,
That'd be a
that's
great
an
fight
unbelievable
too.
fight, that, yeah.
It'd be a great fight too, and we just saw BJ Saunders in Los Angeles. He had a really tough fight against the Argentinian, and Caceres. This is another thing. Again, the name game. It's like people. Billy Joe had a really tough outing, but he stopped his man, and he stopped his man decisively. You could see me in the back with the phone watching it. It was a hell of a knockout. And so people forget, like these guys, like Devin Haney when he fought Alfredo Santiago. People don't think he looks so good, but man, he looked great. Santiago's a tough fighter. His kid's undefeated with a huge amateur pedigree. Comes in a really tough fighting camp out of Puerto Rico, and he dominated. So it's like, to me, the guy he looked great. What do you want from these guys? I mean, they're getting the wins. They're fighting tough guys. Just because you might not know their names doesn't mean they're not real fighters.
Do you think the performance like Billy Joe Saunders will make people want to, and Devin Haney as well in the lightweight division, do you think that will make people want to fight them more when they've seen that perhaps they're having hard fights with guys that would be considered relatively unknown?
Yeah, I think that when fighters see, they look for deficiencies, obviously, and they see things that they think they can get through their defense or whatever. There's holes in their game. It makes it more attractive for them to fight. But at the same time, guys that really want to test themselves at the top level, they look for guys with big performances too, because those that brings the big money.
Talking of the big money, there's a big money fight going on December 7th in Saudi Arabia, Joshua versus Ruiz. I said this to Dave Coldwell yesterday. This is probably, in this country, in the way it's being covered, perhaps the biggest fight since Fox Groves 2. Would that be a fair assessment?
It's a
Huge,
massive fight.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of ramifications for this fight. Besides just who holds the belts, there's a lot of ramifications for this fight. So this is a very important fight. It's a huge fight.
For British fans, would it be a bit of a nightmare if Ruiz was to get the belts? Because a lot of people say that if he was, they'd sort of end up staying in the States and staying in that sort of PBC stable, and that we wouldn't really get the chance to see him again. Is that fair enough?
That could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you got to talk to the powers that be and see what they do. But there's been a lot of talk about PBC doing a belt, and if they get all the belts over there, start doing that. So
yeah,
that could happen.
And on that fight itself and what's going to happen inside the ring, I mean, when you look at the fight night, Joshua seemed to be doing everything perfectly until he dropped Ruiz and, I say, got carried away and sort of overexerted himself. Talk to me about how you think Joshua could approach a fight this time. Perhaps similar to before?
Well,
the way
I think there's several things. Number one, if you watch that fight, I mean, I thought that Joshua wasn't really putting his jab out there the way he should have. It was kind of, it didn't seem like he was kind of lazily putting it out there. And he did tag Ruiz very hard. I mean, the shots that he hit him with were the shots that knocked out
countless people.
No, yes, but I'm talking about the Russian fighter at Wembley.
Povetkin.
I'm sorry,
Povetkin,
yeah. It's been a long day. When he knocked out Povetkin, but
yeah.
He expected that to work. And after the knockdown, Ruiz got up and he hit him flush twice, really hard, but Ruiz was ready for those shots at that point, and he came back. And I think that really surprised Joshua. I think this time is going to be different on several reasons, because I think Joshua knows how serious this fight is. He knows how good of a fighter Ruiz is. Again, it was kind of the name game. He didn't really know too much about Ruiz. He was a late opponent, looks out of shape. He's a lot taller than him. He's more muscular. He's bigger. Thought probably, it's going to be a lot easier fight than it was. Turned out not to be. I think this time he knows how tough he's in, and we're going to see a different fight.
People keep saying that Joshua's been in Ruiz and he has things that he's going to change and alter, but I mean that doesn't mean Andy Ruiz is just going to come and fight the same fight. So is there a chance that perhaps fans are going to underestimate Andy Ruiz again?
No, I don't think so. I think that Ruiz doesn't really need to change his game too much. He looks pretty good, man. He's got fast hands. He's got a good chin. He's got a good boxing IQ. He knows what he's doing in there. He's been doing this for a long time. But at the same time, again, there's like a blueprint for this. I mean, look at the Klitschko's, look at Lennox Lewis. When you have that size, when you have that jab, you use that stick. Double jab right hand. Like, it might sound boring, but it works. It's there for a reason. So. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a very interesting fight. I like Joshua in this fight.
Okay, David Diamante, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for
You got
speaking
it.
to IFL TV.
Pleasure.
My pleasure too. And I'm sure we'll catch up with you on Saturday night.
I hope so. The fight starts now.
It is special. Absolute dynamite. Oh my goodness.
All we do is stare.